That's not what it does. Well, I broke it. So if you're anything like me, you like to spend a lot of time outside in the woods having adventures. Now that could be hiking, camping, hunting, fishing, off-roading. And when you're out on adventure, I'm sure you like to have something cool to drink and maybe some food to eat, especially on a multi-day trip. So one of the problems I find myself running into is, how do I keep my food and my drinks cool? Well, the obvious answer is a cooler, right? Cooler full of ice. Tried and true. Yes. However, if you are on a multi-day trip and you are way out in the wilderness, there's not always a store available that sells ice. So ice is sometimes challenging to come by. They now have these portable fridges. So what makes a portable fridge great? Well, if you have a rig with a battery, most likely you have 12 volts available to plug it in and keep things cool. The kind folks at SetPower have agreed to send me this new little beauty that just came out and asked me to test it out for them. So today we're going to unbox this thing and see what's inside. This is a 16-quart portable freezer. Apparently it's new to the market, so let's take a look to see what we got inside. Got some styrofoam, looking pretty normal so far. Some more plastic, and aha! Uh-oh. Looks like a cooler. Looks like we have our power port up here in the front for 12 volt, 24 volt. Little button here to open it up. Oh. There's a strap. Apparently you could attach a strap to it, carry it around. And here's the power source. Oh yeah, it does. It plugs into 120 or 12 volt. So here's the inside. Looks like we have a fairly small area here for your food, and then almost like a couple cup holders right here for drinks. They'd have to be cans, not bottles of water, that's for sure. So I think what I've figured out is that this is in fact an ice tray. So you fill up with water, and there's all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 individual small round ice cubes. And then once they're frozen, all the ice cubes pop out when you expand it, and then you could dump them out of this. I think that's actually pretty cool. So we'll have to give that a shot. It also has this inverter, 120 and 12 volt plugs. Then it has this strap. Now the strap came with hooks, and the hooks don't actually fit on these loops. I don't know why they put those hooks on it, but essentially this strap will go around, connect to both sides, and then it's adjustable. So you could carry it around, because it is a pretty small cooler. It's only 16 quarts, so it's not heavy at all. I think it's 17 pounds. Okay, I'd like to get this thing powered up, figure out what temperature it is on the inside, and then see how long it takes it to get to the temperature set. Then I got some beef sticks, a little package of ginger beer, and a couple waters. And none of this is very cold, so it shouldn't help cool this down at all. It'll all be based on its own refrigerating power. Okay, it is 71 degrees inside this thing right now. Oh, this is pretty cool. It actually has a little light too. So we're just actually get some of this stuff in there. That's basically a 6-pack of ginger beer, 2 bottles of water. Yeah, so that does fit 2 cans perfectly. Still a little bit of room to spare actually. It didn't fill her up. Yep, 64 is the max, 0 is the lowest. Let's set it to, we'll set it to 33 degrees and give it some time. Figure how long it takes to cool down. Okay, it has reached 33 degrees in 9 minutes. That is 33 degrees in 9 minutes from 71 degrees. That light is pretty cool too, actually. Well, it's been about 24 hours since I put all that food in here and set the temperature to 33 degrees. I did open it once and I got the sausage out and I ate it. But other than that, it has been sealed up. So now it's time to open this thing up and see what temperature the food is and the water is relative to the 33 degree setting that it's been at for about 24 hours. So these two pop cans were actually in the little plastic area outside of the cooler area. They are reading 67 degrees. Here is the ice that did not freeze. 45 degrees. 45 degrees. 45 degrees. Are registering at 48 degrees. So the food and the water is all about 10 degrees, a little more than 10 degrees warmer than the 33 degree setting that this is at. The wall inside of the cooler is reading 38 degrees. All right, so it is set at 33 degrees, as you can tell. In this area, I had two cans. Those are reading in the 60 degree temperature range. Everything in here is reading in the 45 degree temperature range. So this apparently stays fairly well insulated from this. However, this was more than 10 degrees warmer than this. Food in this area did not get as cold as these walls are getting. All right, so the next project is to put all this food back in. Essentially, we're gonna let it acclimate. And then I'm gonna pull the power and I'm gonna let it sit for about 4 hours. And in fact, I don't think I'll need to open it. Essentially what I'm gonna do is just plug it back in and see what the internal temperature reads here first. And hope that I won't have to open it up and ruin my test. Just to see how well this thing works as a cooler when not powered. Okay, so this last test that we're performing was to determine how well this thing works as a cooler when unplugged. And the way I measured it was I unplugged it, documented the start temperature according to the screen, and then I checked it after 1 hour, 2 hours, 12 hours, and 24 hours. And by checking it, all I did was I plugged it in for a second and read what the temperature said on the screen. So what I did was I marked my start time as 0 hours, my start temperature at 33 degrees, and I maintained an ambient temperature in my shop at 69 degrees. So after 1 hour, plugged it in, checked the temp on top, said 45 degrees. That's an increase in temperature of 12 degrees per hour. That's not great. After 2 hours, I plugged it in again, checked the temperature, and it was 51 degrees. So from 0 to 2 hours, that's a temperature change rate of 9 degrees per hour. Then again, after 12 hours, I checked it, it had only reached 59 degrees. So the rate is slowing. Then lastly, at 24 hours, plugged it in, checked the temp, 65 degrees, which is almost ambient temperature. So after 24 hours, one full day, this thing will warm up to what ambient temperature is, at least in my shop. Granted, I'm not 100% sure what this temperature is reading when it's plugged in. It could be refrigerant temperature, it could be the wall temperature of the refrigerator. That said, when this was reading 33 degrees here, the coldest the food I measured earlier was 45 degrees already. So I'd either have to run this thing at about 20 degrees to get the food closer to 30, or I don't leave it unplugged very long. Because if I unplug this thing and the food's at 45 degrees and this thing's warming up at 9 degrees per hour or so, that food's gonna be hitting the 50s in a pretty short time. So ultimately, long story short, this thing works pretty good as a fridge. When I take it out to test it out on the trail, I'm going to have to run this temperature at probably sub-freezing in order to keep my food closer to the 30s. And I'm not going to unplug it very long, 2 hours max. So in that case, if I do need to leave it unplugged for a longer period of time, I'm gonna have to have a battery backup system. Battery generator that I could plug this thing into when my rig's turned off. The next phase is to take this thing out in the woods and test her out. And in fact, in about a week, my wife and I are gonna head up into the National Forest. It happens to be huckleberry season in the state of Washington. So I'm gonna take her out, we're gonna pick some huckleberries, and we're gonna run down to Hood River and do some canoeing. And during that time, I'm gonna drag this along with me, and we're gonna test it out and see how well it works out in the field. That does it for this video. Until next time, stay frosty. Okay, now that all the other tests are done, I set this thing to 0 degrees to see how cold it'll get to freeze that ice cube maker, at least what I think is an ice cube maker. And it did it pretty quick. So now it's time to figure out what this thing actually is. It is frozen. This is set to 0, 15 degrees. So, time to figure it out. I'm gonna, I don't know what to do for sure. I think we're just gonna pull this, see what happens. Got a bowl here, just in case of an emergency. That's not what it does. Well, I broke it. Well, it's broke now, so I guess I could do anything I want to it. Let's see if we heat this up a little bit, I could get it open. It may not be what I thought it was. It may not be an ice maker. Maybe it's just an ice pack. I don't know. Ah, there we go. I wish I could stretch this side out. Ah, there we go. Oh, it is an ice cube maker. Oh, if only I could get it all the way open. Hold on for a second. Okay, so I've spread it out, not the way it was designed to be, but effectively. And now, ice cubes. Well, this thing's pretty cool, and I think it probably would have worked pretty good if I didn't break it. And maybe just let it warm up or thaw out just a little bit so it would expand properly. But look at these little ice cubes. Well done, SetPower. This is a pretty cool little deal. But I broke it. So it's never going to work right again.